At midnight in Montana, a rescued bobcat refuses to leave a baby's crib, then drives a babysitter into a locked bathroom. Protector? Or threat? When parents check cameras, the truth detonates: hidden devices, a network, and an animal that sensed it first. Would you trust the wild over your best friend? Moonlight lays a thin silver lattice across the nursery floor, turning crib slats into quiet bars of light. Willow sleeps inside them, breath a feathered rhythm, lips parted as if finishing a dream. The baby monitor winks a patient green, its small hum threaded into the house's larger hush, the clock's soft tick, the heater's distant sigh, wood settling in the cold. Juniper holds the doorway like a drawn line. Split ear canted forward, whiskers taut, she stands with the stillness of a coiled spring. She has been here all evening, moving only to reposition the boundary of her body when the hallway's scent changes. Cedar, soap, cool night, and something varnished over, sweet, then metallic, like a smile that didn't reach the eyes. Outside, the pines talk in low creaks, coyotes write a far-off sentence across the valley and let the silence answer it. The cabin listens, old boards remembering fire seasons and wind. Inside, nothing moves but the bobcat's tail. One measured flick, the punctuation of a warning. A phone buzzes on the living room table, a jittering insect of sound that startles nothing and no one. Then a sharper note, metal kissing metal, a lock thrown, tested. The bathroom door murmurs against its frame. A voice squeezes down to a whisper and slides along the hall. Is that cat restrained? The words arrive wrapped in sugar. The footsteps do not. They pad forward, pause, retreat, return with the careful weight of someone rehearsing gentleness. Juniper's pupils widen, then fasten to a blade's edge. She lowers her head, not crouching, claiming. The doorway is a threshold, and she is the sentinel posted there. Willow churs in sleep. Juniper answers with a low chuff, the mother sound of reassurance, then resumes her watch. The monitor's eye keeps blinking. The voice tries again, higher, tighter. "Hello, can you move the cat?" Floorboards breathe. The lock clicks once more, an anxious heartbeat in metal. The house's noises gather and lean toward the nursery, as if sound itself were listening. Juniper does not step aside. She inhales, reads the air, and lets the silence say what words will not. Something in this hallway is wrong, and nothing passes this line tonight. Morning in the Bitterroot begins with a soft thrum, panels waking on the roof, inverter ticking over, well pump sighing the first water into copper lines. The valley opens the windows for you. Long pasture stitched by a cold creek, hills stepping up into the dark rib of the range, light catching on the rust-red scales of ponderosa bark. Magpies argue on the fence. Somewhere far off, a train sets a thin ribbon of sound across the day and lets it fade. The Hales cabin sits back from the dirt road, square-shouldered and quiet, built to keep its own counsel. Inside, Nora's studio is a small temple to listening. Microphones rest in their fitted beds, windscreens bagged like sleeping moons, coils of cable domesticated along pegboard hooks. A shelf holds glass jars labelled in her neat hand, gravel, acorns, dried river reeds, textures for foley she can summon at a fingertip. The chimes by the porch are tuned to a fifth. She filed them herself until the interval sat true against the afternoon breeze. Sound, for Nora, is proof. She trusts waveforms the way some trust ledgers, peaks and valleys that admit no pretense. She starts the day by checking the cabin's room tone, recording 30 seconds of ordinary air, and measuring the way quiet sits. If the baseline shifts, she notices, a refrigerator bearing going, weather thickening to storm, a new silence that means Someone hasn't laughed yet this morning. Ethan's world is folded for now. His yellow Nomex shirt and black brush pants lie in a bin by the door, clean and squared, boots oiled and laced as if a call could come any minute. He keeps his hands busy with small repairs, mending a gate hinge, reseating a squeaky drawer, listening to in a different register. Wind direction, grass dryness, how the creek slows by degrees. Between them, the house holds a promise. If they pay attention, it will tell the truth. Juniper learns their clocks, padding the hallway at dusk, the soft scuff of her paws, another line in the score of a day, meant to be lived quietly, fully, and together. Ethan first saw her as a shiver in the ash, a tawny shape stitched to the black earth by a small, stubborn breath. The fire had run low and fast along the creek, a late-season grass burn that left willow tips singed and the air tasting of coin. He moved through the cooling flank in his yellow Nomex and found her tucked under a fallen limb. Juvenile, ribs too sharp, left ear split like a leaf, hind paw darkened where heat had kissed it too long. She didn't hiss. She looked at him like heat looks at distance, wary, unblinking. He slid his gloves off, slow as prayer, and cupped her with the blanket from his pack. The pulse under her ribs was a fast drum. "Easy," he said, "because that's what you say to flames and frightened things." And he carried her out of the charcoal to the truck. The Bitterroot Wildlife Center smelled of chlorhexidine and hay. Triage was crowded, owls stunned by smoke, a fawn with singed whiskers, a fox blinking at a light it did not trust. "We're overloaded," the director admitted, rubbing at the rack of kennels with her sleeve. "We can start fluids and manage the paw, but she'll heal better off-site if you can do a temporary foster. You're a medic. Your wife's home days. We'll supervise. Strictly hands-off except care." Paperwork bloomed. Temporary permit, feeding protocols, enclosure specs, inspection schedule, a note in bold about minimizing human imprinting, and a line Nora underlined twice, no talking near feedings. They brought the Bobcat home in a crate that ticked with her breath, set up a quiet pen in the mudroom with a visual barrier, heat mat, and a box of clean straw, Ethan fluffed with the care of someone who has learned what small comforts can save. They called her Juniper because the berries along the fence had blistered but held their scent, and because names make careful promises. Nora worked the care like a score, fluids measured, topical for the paw, pain meds at the marks she penciled on a whiteboard. She fed with tongs, eyes averted, voice kept in her chest. If Juniper made a sound, it was a low trill that seemed to vibrate the air without crossing the line between them. The paw blanched from black to pink. Appetite woke. Wariness stayed. When the center cleared space and the director nodded, they drove her back to the Rimrock release site before dawn. Juniper slipped into the sage like a whisper and did not look back. 2 nights later, the trail cam pinged. A split ear and a scorch-marked paw moved ghost-silent along the fence line. In the morning, Ethan found prints at the porch steps, deliberate, as if the earth itself had decided to repeat. They drove her out again, farther this time. 3 days later, she returned with a shallow cut along the already tender pad, not dramatic, just enough to ask a question without words. The board convened. The director chewed her lip, then said what the paperwork allowed, non-releasable due to homing behavior and repeated return to human habitation. Permanent placement permitted under strict conditions, secure enclosure with supervised indoor access, emergency plan on file, unannounced inspections, microchip, vet oversight. And, because policy had learned from harder stories, cameras in approved areas with 30 days of storage. Ethan signed, Nora signed. Juniper watched from the crate, still as a held breath. That night, when the house settled and the heaters whispered, she padded to the edge of her enclosure and stood listening to the room as if it were a landscape. She did not ask to be touched. She did not need to. The bond began the way some fires end, not with spectacle, but with smoke thinning to clear air and a single, stubborn ember deciding to stay. Juniper noticed first. She began choosing a new place at night, not the cool boards by the door, not the foot of the bed, but a curved press against Nora's abdomen, split ear, angled like a tiny antenna. The bobcat's warmth settled there with a deliberateness like a vow. Nora lay still beneath the quilt, palms flat, listening to the whisper of fur and the quiet engine of Juniper's purr, as if the animal were listening to someone smaller, hidden. By morning, the house sounded different. Nora measures days by sound. She opens a session, records 30 seconds of room tone, and compares the line to memory. Fridge, well pump, the heater's soft exhale, familiar peaks. But now a velvet swell hovered beneath them. A low frequency she could not mute even when she killed the vent. She set a microphone on the nightstand. Juniper hopped up lightly, lowered her chin across Nora's belly, and the spectrogram brightened along a new band, a pulse riding the purr. "You're changing my bass line," Nora murmured. Juniper blinked and tightened the circle. Sensible explanations lined up and fell apart. Warmth, habit, coincidence. Yet each night, Juniper returned to the same place, settling with a mother sound, a soft chuff Nora had catalogued from field recordings, labelled reassurance. The bobcat's breath found a metronome. Nora's palm found a stillness that trembled. On Friday, she unlocked a private folder. Inside, a single track labelled N, a lullaby she had once hummed into grief and never released. She played it scarcely above silence. Juniper's ears lifted. The purr thickened, the undertone returned exactly where Nora had seen it before. Something unnamed rose in her throat, tender as new bark. Ethan found her rinsing a clean glass. "You okay?" he asked, easy and careful. "I think I know, but I don't," she said. "I think she knows. Hope can flash like gasoline." Ethan set it down gently. "Then we watch," he said. "We'll listen." They did. Days moved like careful footsteps. Nora delivered cues and edits. Ethan mended a gate and checked the creak gauge. Juniper traced the hallway at dusk, then came to rest in her new place, a compass drawing true north. On the 10th morning, Nora faced the test. A pale second line wrote itself into the world, faint and irreversible. She didn't call at once. She stepped into the hall, tears thin and cool on her face. Juniper lifted her head as if an expected note had finally sounded, rose, and pressed her forehead to Nora's hip. No drama, just contact, agreement. Only then did Nora say Ethan's name. He came, saw, laughed once, and covered his mouth with a shaking hand. He held her as though cradling a flame. That night Nora did not open the N file. She lay quiet beneath the window, Juniper breathing steadily against her, and listened as the cabin accepted a new bass line, soft wind in needles, creak over stone, the steady engine of a guardian, and beneath it a body that already knew. Cool September light poured into the delivery room like water through pine needles. Willow Hale arrived with a hoarse cry, a fist lifted as if to stake a claim. Ethan counted fingers twice, then once more for the private fear he could not voice. Nora kissed the damp crown and laughed, a quiet, ragged sound that tasted like relief. Outside, the mountain sky kept its blue promise. 2 days later, the truck rolled back up the dirt road, car seat rocking with the cabin's washboard turns. Before they opened the door, Ethan set the house to its safety routine. Interior gate swung shut, the mudroom enclosure latched. Juniper, place. in the firm tone they had practiced. The bobcat obeyed from her mat, pupils wide, whiskers angling forward, a small chirp escaping her throat as if she knew the scent approaching. Introductions happened as the permit binder advised, slow and still, no reaching, no chatter. Nora sat on the sofa and placed the car seat at her feet. Juniper approached on silent paws, pausing at a careful distance. She sampled the air, milk, soap, rain-damp cotton, something bright and mineral that belonged only to newborn skin. A maternal chirrup, soft and questioning. Then Juniper settled a body length away, posture alert, no tremor of hunger, only attention. House rules went up on the fridge in thick letters. Gates latched, doors closed, no food in nursery. Juniper allowed inside, only under supervision. Distance training, reinforced place, Ethan wrote beneath. They walked the path again, crib height, changing table, stroller clearance, what a tail could sweep, where a paw might land. The first night home taught them the new scale of time. At 1:47 a.m., the monitor slept, dumb and green, but Juniper rose and paced 3 passes across the nursery threshold, tail stiff as antenna. Nora woke to the rhythm, reaching for Willow. 10 seconds later, the monitor crackled, a thin cry built like dawn. Juniper learned the pattern fast. She stationed beneath the crib, with her chin on her paws, ears pricked toward breath and heartbeat. When Willow needed heat, the bobcat shifted closer to the baseboard. When gas knotted the tiny body, Juniper's tail flicked before any tool measured it. And the pre-alerts became a kind of music, pacing for hunger, a single paw tap for a lost pacifier, a low chuff when diapers lied. Ruth arrived with soup and skepticism. She stood in the doorway, hand on the latch, eyes on the animal more than the baby. Juniper did not protest. She kept her post, gaze steady, no hiss, no flare of claws. "Huh," Ruth said, the sound halfway between surprise and apology. She washed her hands twice, then took Willow in a practiced hold. The bobcat watched, allowed, relaxed, by degrees. By week's end, the nursery felt like a chapel where everyone understood the hymn. Doors clicked, gates latched, voices stayed soft. Willow slept, Nora breathed, Ethan listened. And under the crib, Juniper held her station. A sentinel translating needs into notes in the dark. Deadlines stacked like uncashed checks. Nora's clients nudged release dates forward. 2 albums wanted final Foley before month's end. Ethan's therapist approved short station shifts, 4 hours, home by dusk. Ruth could cover Tuesdays if her knees behaved. It still left too many afternoons shaped like question marks. "Let me help," Cassie said, stepping through the door with campus spring in her smile and a tote of soft toys. She hugged Nora, kissed the air, and bowed to the bassinet. "Willow, you tiny headliner." The chimes outside answered as if on cue. They ate soup at the counter and fell into old grooves, rain recorded in stairwells, professors who spoke in metronomes. The night, a smoke alarm supplied perfect high hats. Cassie's phone lay face down, then not. A glance, a swallowed grin. "My channel's between seasons," she said lightly, sponsors circling back. Juniper was courteous in a granite way, present, immovable. She took the hallway like a post, soft eyes until Cassie leaned in, then alertness like a snapped string. When Cassie reached for the bottle, Juniper angled her body to intersect the path to the crib. Not a hiss, a placed boundary. "It's okay," Nora said, uncertain which female she meant. "New rhythms?" "I get it," Cassie said. "Boundaries are good." She lifted Willow with practiced forearms, humming a melody that wanted to be familiar. Neighbors came, the mail driver waved, Ruth brought soup. Juniper barely flicked. an ear. Only when Cassie crossed certain lines, crib, changing table, the dresser of pacifiers, did the Bobcat rise into the doorway, ears forward, tail tip tapping a metronome of no. They formalized rules, phone in the entry basket, no photos, no posting, even to close friends. Cassie performed compliance, pockets inverted with theatrical flair. I'm all yours, where's the diaper cream? Her questions were brisk, which monitor brand, where the router lived, whether the signal reached the porch. I could watch from out there without waking her, she offered, bright and helpful. Inside is better, Ethan said, mild and immovable. Inside, Cassie echoed, smiling. By week 2, the house had a second geometry. When Cassie sat on the rug, Juniper settled between her and the crib. When Cassie stood, Juniper stood. Laughter too bright made the whiskers go rigid. Nostalgia warmed the room. An undernote did not. Whenever Cassie's hand drifted near the mobile, Juniper's attention narrowed to a blade. Give her time, Nora told herself, and then the wall clock, and then the quiet. Still the sentinel marked every approach, placing her body like a door that needed no latch. Cassie laughed, but her eyes tracked Juniper, measuring distance, gauging weather. Juniper didn't blink. She knew, even then, which way the wind was quietly turning. Morning, Wednesday. Cassie arrives with a travel mug and a tote that jingles. Silicone paces, cuter colours, she says, shaking a packet like maracas. Juniper is already posted in the hall, chin lowered, eyes level. When Cassie bends to lift Willow, the Bobcat shifts just enough to make a line between hand and crib. No sound, only geometry. Cassie pauses, laughs, reroutes. Your management, huh? Thursday afternoon. Sun stripes the rug. Milk drips clock-like from the bottle's rim. Cassie feeds, murmuring a sing-song that almost matches the mobile's mechanical lullaby. Nora, at her desk, layers wind over riverstones and hits play. The studio's floor register thrums. Out of habit, she glances at the cabin's room tone meter, baseline steady, then hears a soft scuff. Juniper pacing 3 steps, stop. 3 steps, stop. The pattern repeats only when Cassie leans toward the dresser, where spare pacifiers live. Friday, Ruth arrives with banana bread and practical cheer. Juniper barely lifts her head as Ruth washes hands, tucks a blanket under Willow's feet, kisses a tiny sock. Good girl, Ruth tells the Bobcat without looking up. Hold the door. The air stays easy, a warm loaf cooling. When Cassie returns from a phone call and floats a joke about hiring Grandma full-time, Juniper stands again, as if gravity itself has changed. Weekend. Neighbors bring eggs, a short wave, a gift of stitched bibs. Juniper ignores them. Tail loose, ears soft. A UPS driver thumps a box onto the porch. Juniper yawns. It's only when Cassie moves near the crib that the sentinel narrows into a blade. Little things multiply. Cassie keeps forgetting to leave her phone in the basket. Force of habit, Pinky swear, dropping it in with a flourish only after Nora looks up. The phone reappears moments later. Timer for bottle, playlist for naps, just checking Wi-Fi bars. A pocket bulge prints beneath the hem of her soft jacket. Lip balm, Cassie grins, tapping it. Later it becomes granola, then hand lotion. The scent in the hallway changes with her, citrus top note, then something tinny, like fresh batteries, peeled from foil. Juniper reads the mix and adjusts her distance in inches, sit during stories, stand at the first step toward the crib, step into the doorway if Cassie reaches for the mobile's wind-up key. The tail tip taps once, metronome, not threat. Monday. Ethan returns from a 4-hour shift, smelling of mineral smoke and soap. He leans in the nursery doorway and watches the triangle form. Crib, Cassie, Juniper, 3 points taught with quiet math. "She's still at it," he says, softly. "She's never not at it," Nora answers, hearing her own voice settle lower. "Only with Cassie?" Cassie brings a gift, a cloth star to clip to the crib rail. "It makes white noise," she says, bright. Thumb over the tiny switch. The sound is fine, steady. Juniper stands at once, ears pricked to a point, pupils thin. "Maybe later," Nora says, too quickly, and sets the star on the dresser. Juniper sits again. There are near misses that aren't accidents. A sleeve brushes the monitor cable. Cassie recoils with an apologetic laugh. "Butterfingers." A hand drifts toward the router. "Just curious where you keep the modem." A camera app flashes open and closed. "Habit. Sorry." Each time, Juniper is there first, body placed like a door that doesn't need a latch. Evening pours gold through the pines, the mobile ticks, the heater breathes. Beneath it, a quieter current, the animal reading what the humans won't name, the bright varnish on a smile, the nickel scent of something new. The pattern that fails to be random. Juniper doesn't blink. She keeps the line drawn, day after day, until the line itself starts to feel like law. They chose the shortest distance from ordinary life, a plate of pasta and 1 hour of talk that wasn't about sleep cycles or pumps, or whether the creek's level had dropped. Ruth was visiting her sister in Missoula. The neighbor had a late shift. Cassie, all dimples and assurances, lifted her tote like a flag. "Go," she urged. "You two deserve a date. I've got Willow covered." Ethan checked each latch as if preparing a line for backburn. Gates closed, Juniper's enclosure open, but nursery door pinned with the baby gate, monitor tested, emergency numbers on the fridge. "Inside only," he said, and Cassie sang back, "Inside only," like a promise set to a cheerful tune. At Antonio's, the dining room smelled of tomatoes and basil and the tired happiness of people trying hard. Nora's shoulders sank a notch. Ethan's laugh found its old shape. They ate slow, pretending not to count minutes. Cassie sent a selfie from the rug, duck lips, Willow fuzzy behind her, Juniper a shadow at the frame's edge. "Girls' night," the caption read, with 3 glitter hearts. Nora typed a careful heart back and set the phone face down. They made it 2 bites into dessert. The call came thin and hot. Ethan answered on speaker. Cassie's voice arrived without punctuation. "Come home, now! She attacked! She went for my throat. I'm in the bathroom. I can hear Willow and I can't get past her. Please!" Chairs scraped. A bill fluttered to the table. The road unspooled in a streaking tunnel of pines. Nora's mind vaulted ahead to every angle. Claws, blood, the headline the permit board had warned them about. "She's never," she said, and the sentence collapsed. The cabin stood as they'd left it, lights warm, door locked. Inside, the sound that fills a house when a baby cries and no one answers, pleading, then hoarse. Nora ran, Ethan at her shoulder. In the nursery, Willow gripped the crib rail, cheeks tear-slick, hiccuping. Juniper lay under the crib, not cowering, not prowling, poised, head up, eyes on the hallway. At the scent and the sound of Nora's voice, Willow loosened into her arms. Juniper did not move from her station. She watched the threshold. "Cassie?" Ethan called. A bolt slid. The bathroom door opened a careful hand's width. Cassie's face, pale and wide-eyed. "Is she locked up?" she said, whispering like someone in a library. "She snapped. She lunged. I swear she—" "Where?" Ethan asked. "My throat." Cassie touched her collarbone, fingers trembling, skin unmarked. "She came at me when I put Willow down. She's been circling all night, and then—" Nora rocked, feeling Willow settle, feeling the room rethread itself around a center that had never moved. Juniper's gaze never left the door, as if the danger remained a shape only she could see. "Thank you," Nora said to Cassie, because gratitude was the polite thing and because names had not yet been named. "We're here." Ethan's jaw worked. "It's late. We'll walk you out." Cassie nodded too fast, voice catching on a brittle laugh. "Yeah, sure. She just hates me." Her eyes flicked past them into the nursery, then away. "I'll come tomorrow and explain." "Tomorrow," Ethan said, but the word held a new edge. In the crib's shadow, the sentinel did not blink. Morning thinned the house to pale colours and simple shapes. While Willow dozed against Nora's chest, Ethan opened the permit portal and pulled up the cabin's camera archive, the 30-day cloud the board required. The interface was all squares and timestamps: nursery north, nursery south, hallway east. A scrub bar waited like a flat river. They started with last night. 20:07:12. Cassie carries Willow into the nursery, humming. Juniper is visible under the crib, chin on paws, eyes bright. 20:10:03. Bottle, burp, a clean lay down. Cassie turns her back to the south cam and smooths the blanket with the careful theatre of someone being watched. 20:11:18. The minute everything tilts. Cassie lifts her phone, screen facing down into the crib as if taking a photo. Then her left hand slips to her jacket pocket and produces a small, matte disc, button-sized, a single black eye. She parts the plush animals with 2 fingers, nests the disc among them, angled toward the pillow, and takes another photo, framing her own act. Nora's breath clicks. Ethan pauses, rewinds, zooms. The iris on the disc glints once in the IR wash. A camera, no doubt. 20:12:41. Cassie's right hand fishes out something else, a thin, flat rectangle with a wire tail. She lifts the crib skirt, fingers the slats, starts to feed the tail under the mattress. Under the crib, Juniper changes dimension, stillness converting into purpose. She rises not up, but forward, a low line. The audio picks a thread of sound Nora has catalogued 100 times. Warning, not attack. 20:12:47. Cassie freezes, glances at the doorway, and tucks the rectangle back into her pocket. 20:12:50. Juniper steps between Cassie and the exit, not leaping, not bluffing, placing herself. Cassie feints left, Juniper mirrors, head tracking the pocket, ears knifed forward. The hallway cam catches Cassie's face there. Not fear, calculation. 20:13:06. The break. Cassie dashes and Juniper lunges, but not high. She strikes for the pocket, claws sheathed, a batter's tap at fabric. Cassie jerks free and bolts down the hall. Bathroom door slams, metal bites metal. 20:13:19. Alone with Willow, Juniper returns to the crib, studies the plush cluster, and lifts a paw, a precise bat. The button tumbles to the floor and rolls under the dresser. Juniper lies down again under the crib, facing the door, breathing steady. No one speaks. Ethan scrolls back through earlier days, selects other nights when the geometry had felt wrong. 08:21:19:58. Cassie places something under the bumper, then retrieves it an hour later. Or 8:28:20:4. A similar motion with a different object tucked near the outlet plate, removed before departure. 09:02:19:50. Phone over the crib, angle low, a quick pocketing motion when footsteps pass in the hall. The pattern lays itself bare, a drum Nora wishes she could unhear. Her stomach hollows, her hands go cold around Willow's sleeping weight. Trust collapses with a soft, final sound. Ethan exhales, the kind of breath you take before a charge line lights. He doesn't look away from the screen. "We're calling," he says, voice leveled. Nora nods once. She wipes her cheeks with the back of her wrist and clicks the archive's download icon. Every angle, every timestamp, the minutes before, and after. Her finger hesitates only long enough to feel the choice become a fact. "Press save," she says. He dials the sheriff. The footage spools to the cloud and down again, two paths of the same truth. Under the crib, on a screen, and in the room, the sentinel keeps her post, eyes on the door. Detective Maya Delgado arrived with a canvas satchel and the calm of someone who measures time in evidence, not minutes. She listened once, all the way through, hands still on the table, while Ethan played the clips. At the frame where Juniper batted the button free, Maya leaned closer, not surprised, only precise. "We'll need the device," she said. "No one touch it. We'll recover it from where it rolled." Two deputies sealed the hallway, photographed every angle, and logged the room's state. Maya lifted the tiny camera with forceps into a clear evidence jar, then slid Cassie's white noise star into a Faraday sleeve. The transmitter in the pocket, if it existed, wasn't in the house now. "We'll get it from the source," she said, eyes on the bathroom door's memory. Her phone. At the kitchen table, the satchel bloomed into tools. Right blocker, cables, a small laptop wearing the scuffs of long days. Cassie's phone, bagged, powered down, yielded nothing until the warrant pinged approved. Maya documented hash values, opened a forensic image, and began the slow excavation of a double life. A hidden message app, a contact saved as Lark, instructions that read like stage directions: angle down, lights low, placed near soft toy, test signal, confirm with photo. Screenshots showed money transfers, prepaid cards, small deposits, just enough to keep a promise of later. "Debt," Maya said, not unkindly. "And someone who knows how to make debt obedient." She connected the button cam to a write-protected reader. Its settings told the rest of the story. Broadcasts to an external server, fallback to a disguised relay if the first link failed. Last night's session was short, seconds, cut by gravity and a paw. "Your cat limited exposure," Maya said, voice even. "That matters." By afternoon, Cassie sat in the back of a cruiser, rights red, shoulders folded around a story that didn't fit anymore. She looked at Nora once as they led her out, an expression that was apology and plea and denial, tangled together. Nora did not look away. Ethan didn't either. They stood behind the baby gate and let procedure be the only language spoken. Warrants widened. The server took them beyond the window glass, a rented machine farmed out to multiple rooms, fields named after toys and colors, an administrator 2 counties away. Arrests followed like dominoes, one at a co-working loft, another at a ranch house with blackout curtains at noon. The handler called Lark turned out to be a man whose real name had no birds in it. In between phone calls and signatures, Maya sipped bad coffee and kept her tone steady. "You did what you were supposed to," she told Ethan. "You installed cameras, you checked them, you called." To Nora. "You documented. That's how we pull threads." Outside, the pines traded evening back and forth. Inside, grief found its rails and ran along them, sorrow for the friendship, anger for the trespass, and then, because there was a child in the next room and a sentinel under her crib, the emotions settled into something usable, resolve. Technology had hidden the harm, instinct had dragged it into the light. Ruth came on a Tuesday with a guide to wild cats, its spine mended with tape. She stood in the nursery doorway and read aloud, voice pitched to hush. Ranges, tracks, the difference between a chirrup and a growl. "I misjudged you," she told Juniper without looking at her. "You were holding the door I was afraid of." She closed the book and sat on the floor, palms open on her knees. Juniper watched, then inched closer, not for petting but for proximity, the way truce is signed, side by side, facing the crib. Ethan waited until evening to speak. The creek had found its night voice. "I've been on stress leave," he said, thumb worrying the seam of his mug. After the burn-over, "I told Mom I was between rotations because saying it out loud made it feel permanent." He described the sound he couldn't unhear, oxygen roaring, then silence, and how hope lately felt like a spark he didn't trust to carry. Nora listened, then set her hand over his. "We tell truths here," she said. "That's the promise." He nodded, shoulders easing. Later, Nora opened the private folder. The file labeled N blinked on the screen like an old bruise. She retitled it Willow's Lullaby, armed a mic, and hit record. No lyrics, just breath, a thin melody that made space for the room. Heater hushed, creak folding over stone, the quiet rumble of a bobcat under the crib. When she stopped, the waveform looked like a river with a bright stone. She saved the track and exhaled. "What we missed," she whispered, "she saw." Ethan glanced toward the nursery. Juniper lifted her head, ears tilting as if the sentence had weight. In the new quiet, nothing needed defending and everything did. The difference was that now they were listening together. Sun rinses the meadow in late summer gold. A ribbon circles the old ponderosa like a sash. Paper triangles flutter from twine. Two candles wait in a frosted cake, the color of creek foam. Neighbors set down baskets and laugh softly, as if the valley itself were napping. Detective Maya Delgado arrives with a wrapped rectangle, inside a plain photo frame and a note. For what is true when watched. The county's commendation from animal control hangs on the porch beam. Simple, decent words for a wild guardian. Ruth passes out hand-sewn bobcat plushies, each with a tiny split ear. Ethan threads twine through a kite. Nora cues a small speaker. Her track, Willow's Lullaby, breathes under the chatter, wind in needles, creak on stone, the almost imperceptible purr she once captured from the floorboards. Willow totters through clover and throws her arms around Juniper's neck. The bobcat leans, eyes half closed, a low rumble answering candle flame and birdsong. Guests glance over, then back, the way people do when awe becomes ordinary. Candles bloom, Willow blows, everyone cheers. Juniper doesn't move, only watches the circle with a relaxed, measuring calm. The sentinel is at ease today, but the line she drew is still there, invisible and intact, a quiet law beneath the pines.